Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Hello and welcome to The Print. I'm Snesh Alex Philip. A lot has been happening in the world of the unmanned aerial vehicles. Yes, I'm talking about drones. India has gone ahead and has leased two Sea Guardians from a US firm. At the same time, China has emerged as the world's largest exporter of armed drones. And you're all well aware of the Azerbaijan and Armenia war that Azerbaijan won decisively thanks to the armed drones and the loitering munitions which were sourced from Turkey and Israel. But where is India among all of this? Where does India stand? And for that, I have with me the former DG, that is Director General Artillery, Lieutenant General P. Ravishankar. Welcome to the Print, sir.
Thanks a lot, and it's a pleasure to be here on this platform.
Thank you, sir. Before I ask you the first question, I'm sure some of the viewers would be wondering why I've got a DG Artillery to speak on drones. Now, this is because it is very interesting that in the Indian Army, the UAVs that the Indian Army operates, they come under the artillery. So as DG Artillery, he is the person responsible not just for the artillery guns, but also for the unmanned aerial vehicles. So, General, the first question is, where does India stand in the world of unmanned aerial vehicles?
In the world of unmanned aerial vehicles, largely we have been operating unmanned aerial vehicles for the past 2 decades. Right now, we have a combination of short-range UAVs and high-altitude, long-endurance UAVs also, and some armed capacity we have. Okay. I'm talking about all three armed forces.
Okay.
But largely, these are all imported varieties from Israel.
Okay. So, General, when we talk about armed capability, you of course are referring to the loitering munitions that the...
Yes, the loitering ammunitions. Right. We acquired some loitering ammunitions from Israel some time back, which the Air Force had done.
Okay.
Right. They're not with the army at this point of time.
Okay. So, sir, in terms of the UAVs that we operate, you of course mentioned the Israelis, and these are the Searchers and the Herons.
Herons, yes.
And of course, we have the smaller UAVs which are used for tactical operations by the infantry along the border lines and operations.
Those are the quadcopters, which are procured locally under local arrangements. These are largely built-up items. They're not manufactured in India.
Okay.
Right? They're not designed in India. That's how it is. And we have fairly good experience in using UAVs, not so much in building them.
And why is that so? Because you mentioned that we've been operating UAVs for the last 20 years.
It's like this. When we started the operating UAVs, we also went in with the DRDO to develop UAVs.
Okay.
The DRDO developed a UAV called Nishant initially. It was equivalent to a Searcher Mark 1, the short range variety.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that wasn't very well designed. A few were inducted and they were a failure. At the same time, as we were inducting Heron UAVs, we again went back to the DRDO to get something equivalent to a Heron. But that program has been gone into a rut. For the past 10 years, we funded them, handheld them and everything, but they've not come up with the goods. It's time we started looking at a different kind of a methodology.
This is the UAV that the DRDO is currently in the production of making.
Yeah.
And these are called...
Rustum.
The Rustums.
The original program is called the Rustum, which was equivalent to the Heron. They
Okay.
also come out with something called Rustum 2, which is a little lesser version, which is made out of a civil aircraft, right? And they've flown. They keep promising, but unfortunately, the DRDO has not delivered on this.
Okay. And so they are also developing an armed Rustam, if I'm not mistaken. That is the
See,
same.
once you have the capability to fly a aircraft, unmanned aircraft, to build it into an armed capacity is not a great thing.
Okay.
You just take the payload out and put another payload. In fact, if I put it in a crude term, instead of I take a surveillance payload out, put TNT into it, and make it into a kamikaze system, it's an armed UAV. Arming a UAV for me is not that great as much as being able to design and fly it.
Okay. Oh, so of course, the DRDO is developing the Rustams, and the DRDO says that you should one should see the Rustam flying, at least the test bed flying in another next few months is what the DRDO is saying. But in the private sector, a lot has been happening. There are many startups that have come up, which are researching and designing the drones. Most of them are the smaller ones. But two significant indigenous drone programs are going on in the country right now. One is, of course, the one at IIT Kanpur, which has a tie up with the DRDO, right, sir?
Yeah, they have a tie-up. They have a tie-up with the DRDO and they have a tie-up with L&T also.
Okay. These are for the long range
Yeah,
drones.
the longer range versions.
Okay.
Simultaneously, IIT Madras is also undertaking a similar exercise,
Absolutely.
right? And in fact, both the programs started together. They started, after a discussion we had with each other when I
Okay.
was in chair. I am
Okay.
aware of both the programs, right?
So, viewers, just before I come to the IIT Chennai program, the general retired in 2016, and after retiring as the DG Artillery, he is now working with the IIT Chennai for its drone program, sir.
Yeah.
So, so where does the drone program currently stand, sir?
Uh, Look, I'll talk about IIT Madras first, and then we'll look at the others. As far as IIT Madras is concerned, we designed a drone uh, which can fly about 100 kilometers, 6 hours endurance, right? Which has got a all-up weight of about 50 kg, which means about 10 kg payload weight it can take. We designed it and we tried to fly it. It failed. Then we went back to the drawing board,
This
and
was
then
which year, sir?
this we it failed in about 2018.
Okay.
Okay, so we went back to the drawing board and redesigned the whole aircraft, and now we have two aircraft ready. One is a 50 kg same weight aircraft, and one is a 25 kg weight aircraft, all up weight, which gives you about 5 kg of payload. Both these, have an endurance of about 6 hours,
Okay.
right? And the range is dependent on the link you can get, communication link with the aircraft. We are ready. Unfortunately, we in fact we displayed the aircraft in the Defense Expo in Lucknow earlier this year.
Yeah.
But after the COVID has started, we have stuck. We are not able to fly anywhere. So now that the things are easing off, and we are restarting it. Hopefully, within the next month or two, we should be flying it. We've done the ground tests and all. The aircraft is quite okay, and we intend to do the first aerial test, fly it, and then go in for the thing. The fundamental thing is, if one aircraft is good, the rest you can design around that and upscale them.
Absolutely.
And then, as far as the IIT Kanpur is concerned, they have managed to design and fly an aircraft, same about 25 kg worth,
Okay.
25 kg all up weight.
Not the 50, but you have a 50 kg one.
We have a 50 and 25, but we are going to validate our design on the 25, then fly the 50. It's
Okay.
sequential, but we are ready with both. As far as why IIT Kanpur has gone ahead because they have a runway. You know, in the good old days, IIT Kanpur when it was made and instituted, it was only one with the aerospace department. So it has a full runway. So they are slightly better equipped, right? Today, IIT Madras and IIT Bombay, which have very good aerospace engineering departments, are stuck because we don't have runways. We don't have flying capability. It's a very funny thing, but this is part of our own development. You need more infrastructure.
So you mean to say, sir, while there is an aerospace department at the three colleges that you mentioned,
Yeah,
only IIT Kanpur has a runway, the IIT Chennai and the IIT
no,
Madras
we
doesn't have.
don't have. That's a problem of. It's one of the fundamental problems of our development. If we had that, then we would have been in a different league altogether.
So where do you fly, sir? Because when something is being
Yeah,
done in the aerospace field, you need space to fly it.
yeah. There's a problem in this. There's a national problem in this, right? All the aerospace departments go to Kanpur or someplace to fly like that, or to sports clubs and aerospace clubs and all that. As far as the one which we are building in designing and developing in IIT Madras, we are taking the help of the army to fly.
Okay.
Last time also we went and took it to Devlali and flew it in the UAV base there.
The Devlali in Maharashtra.
Yeah, Maharashtra.
Okay. And so this time also it would be
Yeah,
flown.
we'll go there. We'll go there or wherever. In fact, we are in touch with the Navy and the Air Force also.
Yeah.
So wherever we get a place to fly, we'll fly. In fact, today the bottleneck is having an airfield to fly.
Okay. But you can't if you don't fly if you are flying at any other civil site, you would of course need the DGCA to
Yeah, that's a big
permissions.
problem because DGCA has a lot of restrictions on flying and all this. So as a result, by the time you get the DGCA clearance, time passes, and you can't keep waiting, and you have to fly. So today, if drones have to come up in India, it has to be through the armed forces only. And
Okay.
here I might add, the major thing is that the development of UAVs is not an armed forces requirement; it's a national requirement. See, you need armed drones. I mean, not armed drones, normal drones with long-range drones for oceanography, disaster management, communications, right? You need for fishermen, monitoring fishing activities. You need it as a platform to test aerial platforms, especially for your space application. So there are n number of things for which you need a UAV besides army, right? And it has to be a national mission to develop UAVs for all purposes. That is only feasible only if you have the facilities and the ability. The government and empowers premier institutes like IIT to fly and
So
makes it feasible. You need to have good simple procedures.
absolutely, and I completely agree when you say that flying, having indigenous drone or UAV capability is not a service requirement, but is a national requirement. Uh, so, as far as your program is concerned, of course, the flying is an issue, but in terms of the support being provided by the government, or for that matter, the services, how is it being served?
See, we started this program in consultation with the services,
Okay.
and they gave us help and they gave us some guidance. And when we have to fly, we go to fly to them. But very funnily, no one has funded us.
No one has funded you.
The funding from the government or the services has been zero. In fact, they've shied away from it. I mean, that's very funny. The way I look at it. Just to give you an idea, what
So,
are we building?
So 1 minute. So there is no funding for this program. So
No, there's no
where does the
funding.
cost come in from? Of course,
See,
there is.
again, it's a very strange thing. We put in some requests for grants through the Department of Science and Technology and all that, and said that look, this will be basically used by the armed forces. The DRDO came and said, no, we don't need IITs to develop it, and I found it very funny. And they ensured that funding then doesn't come to us, and then it was never given to us thereafter through all sources. any source. So we've gone to a MSME who's now funding us. Our one of our problems is funding,
Okay.
right? And so our program, I'm hoping that once I prove that I can fly, people will say, okay, this is a place where you can invest more.
So you're saying ki the armed forces are not funding you. The DRDO came and scuttled
Yeah.
your possible funding, and it is an MSME,
Yes.
a medium small business enterprise which is funding your program.
Yeah. Not none of the major industries in India also funded.
So how much? I'm so sorry for asking this, but how much of funding is required for development of this particular program that you're
Yeah.
pursuing?
If you want a hail kind of, if you want a program to go up to the hail variety, heron variety, I
The
need to
hail for the viewers
and
is the high altitude
high altitude, long endurance aircraft with some armed capability. You need funding to the extent of about 10 crores. It's not much.
10 crores.
That's it. And if you are looking at medium range and short range UAVs and all that, about 5 to 6 crores is good enough.
5 to 6, the maximum range you're putting is at 10 crores for the development phase.
Yeah, development phase. And in terms of production costs, everything put together, we if you make it at indigenously, you will be able to get this UAV at about say 1/10 the price which we are paying outside.
One
We have to
tenth
invest.
price that we are paying for importing
Herons.
drones
Yeah,
from
importing.
outside.
See, we not only import the aircraft, but you import spares also later on. Everything is import once you import. Whereas if you make it here, everything will be here. And we have all technologies here to do it. Except the IMU, the inertial measurement unit. Everything else is available in India in terms of technology, spares and everything, including the engine.
Engine. But
Engine.
I suppose engine is something that India is falling behind. I think the IIT Kanpur engine is a Russian engine, if I'm not mistaken.
They're trying 2-3 engines. They're trying an Austrian engine, the Russian engine. You can buy engines from abroad from anywhere,
Of course.
right? But we are not doing it.
Yours is an indigenous one.
We have an indigenous one. There's an engine manufacturer in Coimbatore. Actually, we discovered him. We found that he was selling his engines to Germany for UAVs. So we took it, qualified it, made it better. We put in this thing. Now he's going to give us engines for any kind of aircraft which we want.
I'm really sorry, but this comes as pure surprise to me. The fact is that you have you have an Indian company, a Coimbatore-based company, which manufactures engines for UAVs.
Yeah.
And they are exporting these engines to Germany.
Yeah.
But India is not using them till now.
Yeah, we'll hope India, we'll now do it in IIT Madras.
Okay. And what company is this, sir? Because even I have never heard of this.
This is called UMS
My
Technologies.
apologies.
The company is UMS Technologies, right?
Okay.
And they are into many kinds of engines and all that. And they are partnering with us. They're part of our program today.
And these engines are being flown by these engines are used to power the German UAVs.
German UAVs, and what the Germans use it for a low-grade UAV.
Okay.
What we have done is we've taken their engines and upgraded them and requalified them with better propulsion, better design. We've changed the designs a bit. So we have very good engines. We have everything good, right? Not only that, we have next generation payloads also. See, today the normal payload is called a MOSP, multi-optronics spectral photography system, which does day-night camera, and it's a very heavy system and it's a costly system. In fact, it's the costliest item on a UAV. We are not going to use that. We are going to use next generation digital technology with image intensification and enhancement digitally.
Okay.
So we are going to use low grade cameras and use that technology to enhance the images on ground, which means that costly payloads are out, which means the cost of the UAV falls. That's why the cost falls. the engine cost falls, right? So we are using technology to ensure that our product is, or rather, our design is going to come cheaper. Plus, we're going to have two variants of these UAVs. One is the normal variant, which is of CRPF, carbon reinforced fiber plastic,
Okay.
which is going to be used for normal purposes. We are also going to have a disposable UAV made out of plastic, low grade plastic.
Okay.
It'll fly for about 10 flights. After that, you have to change the skin. But in case you want to use it as a disposable UAV for armed purposes, you use that.
Kamikaze purpose.
Yeah, you use that, and even if you lose it, it doesn't go. So the payloads are cheap, the body is cheap, the engine is yours. So even if it goes, it doesn't matter. You can convert it into a loitering aircraft. There's not a problem. Loitering is the only difference between a loitering and a runway takeoff is loitering is one way. It will not come back.
Yeah.
And you can rail launch it. You
Yeah.
don't need a runway,
Yeah.
right? So that's not a big deal. Converting a UAV into a loitering system is not a big deal. But what we are doing is something different. When you use a loitering system, you want to make it as cheap as possible. So we are doing that so that you don't lose much, so we are okay for that, but someone has to invest.
Truly, and so it's quite strange that you have a system, you have an indigenous system, and no one is willing to come forward to invest in it. We have an MSME which is investing. No other organization or individuals have shown interest in
No,
funding
then see, some people have shown interest in funding from abroad.
from
People
abroad.
from abroad, but we are not interested in taking funding from abroad for the simple reason then this IP for this technology will go abroad. We don't want that.
And from abroad, I mean, are these Indians who
No, not Indians. They're foreigners, total foreigners. They could be from, I mean, we got inquiries from South Africa, we got inquiries from USA. People have said, we are prepared to fund you, but we are not prepared to take it. Because these technologies are not available outside.
Okay.
Right? I mean, and whatever funding we do and we get it and they knock it off at cheap rate, and then you'll go running around buying it at 10 times or 20 times the cost. Even the Israelis have made inquiries with us.
Even the Israelis are interested in this.
I wouldn't say interested. They made inquiries, but I didn't show interest, so they backed off.
So you have a situation where, of course, an indigenous drone is being made. You don't have a funding from the services or from the government, or for that matter, you said that the DRDO even went ahead and curtailed your possible funding.
Yeah.
But you have an MSME funding it right now.
Yeah.
And then you have foreign players, the US, the South Africans, the Israelis who are interested in funding this.
Yes. We are functioning on a shoestring budget. You see, one of the problems of our system, this is not related to the drones alone, everywhere. We have technology, we have capability. The team I have, each guy is a top class guy. He's one of the best in the field. And these chaps are young professors who have been abroad for 10, 15 years, and they've come back to India to do something for India. Okay. And now when these people, in fact, they came to me and said, look, when I was retiring, will you come and join IIT Madras and guide us into it? So I'm guiding them. And I went to the army gave me a lot of help initially. But when it came to funding, they backed off. I went to the Air Force, they also backed off. Navy never responded. So we got stuck. Unless we are funded, where will you go? And this is the case everywhere. The government of India and the private industry and the armed forces are not prepared to invest in technology. You invest in technology, be next to them, people will deliver. It's not something that this is rocket science that we don't know. In any case, rocket science we've done well. We got a fantastic missile program.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the technologies in the missile program and the technologies for a UAV are virtually the same. Any flying object. And yet we have not been able to get a UAV. It's such a dumb thing. right? So I think there is a way need to relook at this whole business ab initio and to see how do you.
So, but this government has been, big about Make in India, about Atmanirbhar Bharat. They've been
Yeah,
talking about the army, the air force, and the navy. Have been talking about the fact that there needs to be indigenous systems.
yeah, we don't have structures. We simply don't have structures for Atmanirbhar Bharat and Atmanirbhar Abhiyan and within the army, navy, air force, or the government. Look, technology doesn't reside in DRDO, right? Tomorrow's technology resides with IITs and premier institutions, young people, startups. Okay, it is not tomorrow's technology. Unless you go to them, that technology will not come to you. If you don't go to them, that technology will go abroad, and it's going abroad. See, we talk of startups and all that. In our startups, the venture capitalism is from outside. It's not from India,
True.
right? So that fellow, when he puts money and he takes that startup and the technology and he'll go abroad. He'll scale up abroad. He's not doing it here. So you're left with nothing. We are resisting it. I'm resisting it for the only one reason that I'm there. As a general officer, they say, look, this is an army thing, and I convinced everyone this is good for our nation and everything. But how long can I do it? At some point of time, someone's going to say, look, this technology I know, I'll go and sell it outside.
Well, General, that is really, I don't know how to put it, but a very sorry state of affairs as far as, and you rightly mentioned, there are multiple issues that are there that needs to be sorted out if really want to implement the Make in India policy, or for that matter, the Atmanirbharta policy, General.
I'll not put it as a sorry state of affairs because that's being negative about the whole affair. I will put it this way. We have to change. We need a change, right? Unless we change our approach, right? Unless we are prepared to invest outside DRDO, unless we make our structures easy to go and unearth technology and bring it, it will not come to technology will not come to armed forces unless armed forces go to. It's that thing with Muhammad in the mountain.
Yeah.
Muhammad has to go to mountain, right? The technology, otherwise some other Muhammad will come and take it. That's what's been happening with us. So
Well, I hope it doesn't, General, and I hope there is seriously, as you rightly mentioned, there's a change as far as our policies, the defense procurement policies are concerned. It's not just procurement that one should focus on; it's also on capability, indigenous capability enhancement. The handholding has to be there, General. Thank you so much, General, for speaking to the print. It was a pleasure as always. Thank you, General.
thank you. Thanks a lot, Snesh.